Hi everybody and welcome to today's arrangement. So I thought I'd do something a little bit different. I normally work with fresh flowers and I love fresh flowers. So to work with artificial isn't my normal, should we say, but in floristry we do work with both. We work with fresh flowers, silk flowers and dried flowers as well. You might see a lot of the pampas grass at the moment quite coming back into fashion. So when you're using artificial flowers, whether it be dried flowers or silk flowers, you're working with a different type of floral foam, and it's this one. So it's completely different in colour. The one that we had last week was green. This is our dry oasis. You can see it sounds a lot different. The bits that come from it, you've got to be super careful that you don't touch it and then touch your eyes, because they really do hurt and scratch in your eyes. Pretty easy to cut. You can cut pretty easy with a knife, but this will not soak water. So it doesn't matter how long you leave this one in a bowl of water, it will just stay floating on the top. It won't soak at all. So that's what you're going to need if you're going to work with artificial flowers today. Now what I'm going to make, the style of arrangement that I'm going to make, you could easily do this with fresh flowers if you wanted to, if you prefer fresh. The actual structure of it going together will be exactly the same, but I just thought I'd use silk flowers today for a change. So today I've got myself a pot, and this is an old plant pot. I'm going to use that. I thought it was a nice size. You can use just a plastic dish or a saucer, a nice container that you might have at home, you can use that. I'm going to use this one. I quite like the size of this and the colour of it. And I've got my dry oasis. Now when you're putting your dry oasis in, you need to make sure that you've got enough that it's just going to stick a little bit above the height of the pot. As you can see, this is quite small, so I've got an extra little bit that I'm going to wedge in the bottom first. And you also need some tape. So this is my floristry pot tape, but you can just use sellotape, anything that's just going to go across the top, that's going to hold that oasis in place. That's all you need. Now if you're using your fresh flowers, you're going to need your scissors. But if you are using silk flowers, I do recommend that you use a pair of wire cutters. It just makes it easier. You can cut the stem with, this is an old stem of a bit of foliage, where flowers once were. But if you're cutting it with your scissors, you might struggle, because you'll find that your artificial flowers will have the plastic on, but then in the middle, it's got wire. So that's where you need your wire cutters. That make it so much easier, she says, to get through that. But usually once you've put a small groove in it, hang on, once you put that small groove in there, this becomes a little bit easier. There you go. So I haven't had to actually go through. It will just cut off with a little bit of a wiggle and a twist. But ideally, wire cutters as opposed to scissors when you're using your fresh ones. As with all tools, make sure that you're being careful. You know, we don't want anybody cutting themselves or jamming their fingers in this when you're copying, doing your design. And I've also got a selection of flowers. Now I'm just going to use for my three main flowers, 3 roses. So I've got 3 stems of silk roses. They've already been cut, they've already been used before in the house. So I'm just going to use 3 roses, and I'm just going to do a line of them, 3 flowers. And I did say that you can add in another flower if you want. And I've got some little small bits of this gorgeous little pink blossom. So I've got a little bit of that. But I wanted you to think about your foliage, what foliage you're using, and I wanted you to look at the different textures. So for example, we've got 2 different types of foliage here. This one is Ficus benjamina. So this is off a ficus plant. You can get these as fresh plants. This obviously is a silk piece. And this one looks like a rubber leaf. But just to look at the difference in the structure, so that when you're choosing your materials, you know that this is going to really stand out against this, because we've got a smaller variegated leaf as opposed to a large solid green leaf. So looking at the different ones, I've got a piece of ivy. So again, we've got lots and lots of small flowers, nice trailing flowers, as opposed to maybe a piece of fern that's quite rigid and quite structured. I've also got Celia. Now you can buy this as fresh, but this is an artificial piece. So again, nice and tall, rigid, and that's going to keep nice and tall and give me the height. And then I've got all the bits of foliage as well, just little bits of leaves, but again a slightly different shade in a lighter green, just giving me lots and lots of difference. And that's what we're going to look for when we're putting our arrangements together. So although we're using very minimal flowers, we're looking at different textures with our material.